Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk here at RSA 2025. Terry Sweeney with Dark Reading, and joining us now is Jeff Shiner, co-CEO of 1Password. Shiner, thanks so much for joining us today on News Desk.
Yeah, happy to be here.
I appreciate you doing this. We are talking about the role of Agentic AI and identity management, which is a potent mashup for sure. It's also emerging as a key driver for enterprises who are really looking to transform their security strategies. For viewers who may be new to the concept of Agentic AI, help us understand what that term entails.
Yeah, I think if people think of traditional AI, they think of ChatGPT, they think of a chat bot. But what Agentic AI is, you can think of that as a semi or autonomous bot. It's a service that's going to not only take input, but it's going to actually take actions on its own. So an example might be you may have an Agentic AI bot that determines what keywords to bid on and how much to pay for those keywords.
And that's easily translatable in the language or requirements for, say, a SOC professional.
Yes, exactly. So when we think of it from a security point of view, and one of the challenges there is these bots need access. They need to have the ability to see everything from the apps that are where they'll do the bidding. They need to be able to get access to what's the budget. They need to be able to access apps. They need to be able to make decisions, and you need to, as a result of that, make sure that you can track everything that they're doing.
These are the non-human entities we've been hearing so much about who need all the credentials that a human user would need.
Yeah, they're really somewhere in between a service and a human. They act independently. They act as a bot. They just run 24/7, but they do make decisions on their own, and they do take actions on their own, and they'll need access as a result of that.
That's really helpful. So with that in mind, how do you see Agentic AI reshaping the threat landscape and the way that security teams work and respond?
Yeah, the challenge with the AI agents is that they don't fit nicely into any of our traditional or the legacy security tools. They are that mix of somewhat like a human and somewhat like a service, and because of that, they need to be protected much like you would protect a human, but you also need to protect them in new and different ways. They add to what we call the access trust gap, the difference between what is the strongly managed and known aspects of a business today and then where work is actually being done. And these agents are a place where work will actually be done.
Okay, so they need both the autonomy, but yet also specific kinds of monitoring as well, it sounds like.
Yeah, if you think of it from a security point of view, you are going to want to understand what access they have, how long they have that access, the nature of that access. Is it admin access or is it just read-only access? And then for the actions they're taking, what actions are they taking? Where's data going or where's data coming from as a result of that action? And are they following the policies that you're trying to lay out? So all of that information needs to be tracked, again, like you would any employee or any other action that's taking place, but they don't have all of the same characteristics of those employees.
Okay. So if left unchecked, what security risks do they pose? Are there guardrails to keep them in alignment with policy, business intent, that kind of thing?
Yeah, one of the interesting challenges is because they need so much access. If you think of it as a person, we're going to sit there and say, well, this person gets access to these tools and this type of access to these tools. I'll give you admin access to our finance system and only read-only access to our customer system. So when you think of an agent, they need very similar types of access depending on what actions they're taking. So the first thing you want to do is give them only as much access as they need for those tasks and only for as short a period of time as is necessary. And so that's one way that you need to control them. Otherwise, what's going to happen very quickly is you're going to just have this sprawl of credentials that's out there, and these agents, which may be interacting with other apps or may actually be interacting with other agents, and then you've got a real sprawl of agents connecting with agents who are going to need further access. So all of that is something that's risky and needs to be managed. The other interesting challenge is they're bots, they're not humans. So if we give a human access, we might provision it from, from an SSO, or they might use, even username and password with MFA. Those sorts of things don't work for a bot because they're not a human, they're not a user. And so you need secure ways to allow them or to program them so that they can have access.
Okay. Closer to home, 1Password recently launched AI Agent Access Security as part of its extended access management platform. Talk about the problem that this is solving, and how does identity infrastructure need to evolve to support this AI-driven automation?
Yeah, I think there's two different challenges that we're here to solve. The first is, how do you, as a developer, build an AI agent in a secure way? And that comes down to authentication, to credentials, right?
Okay.
Because again, you don't want to do what unfortunately we've seen too much of, which is things like hard coding user credentials, so that if this agent needs to log into, let's say, your customer support database, you're just going to hard code in some credentials there because you're never sure when they're going to need them. So the first thing we do is want to make it easy for developers to be able to develop those agents, but keep the secrets in our extended access management platform, so that you, as the security team, can determine when they can have access, under what policies, and for how long. The second part is you need to be able to automate these within your enterprise at scale, which means you need to have the ability to manage them as, and again, not as a human, not as an app, but as a, we'd call it a service account, or a close to human sort of entity, but with their own identity, where you can determine what level of access do they get. You can manage that access, you can restrict that access, you can remove that access to all of the apps and services that it's going to have. You can ensure that all of the actions are tracked, that all of that access is time limited, is following the policy. So again, it's that ability to continuous access control and access management that's important.
Agentic AI is also accelerating an existing trend, and that is access that's happening outside of traditional security perimeters. How's 1Password helping organizations close this access trust gap across IT, across shadow IT in particular, with unmanaged devices and distributed teams?
Yeah, I think if we look at it, why is this happening? It's happening because companies want to be productive. And in 2025, how are you productive? By using apps that are outside of sort of the small group of apps that are enterprise deployed. And AI is going to be yet another example of that. That's what we call the access trust gap, the difference between what's tightly managed and where work's actually being done. So our extended access management is there to, A, give visibility into the businesses of the shadow IT, the shadow AI, maybe the BYOD, but then also allow the businesses to create and enforce policies of use over those apps and devices.
Real quickly, is the race on with attackers to replicate or somehow copy these agentic AI bots for access to the keys to the kingdom?
Yeah, I think so. Again, we're going to see more and more of AI being used as a threat. Some of the services like Darkula that are come out there, which are the AI phishing services. So yes, very much so.
Okay, so some promise, but also a little bit of peril as well, which is par for the course in security, right?
That is where cybersecurity is in 2025, and I think will be for the future.
Well, a lot to think about here, Shiner. Thanks so much for dropping by the Dark Reading News Desk. This has been a really, really interesting conversation.
It's been my pleasure.
We've been talking with Jeff Shiner of 1Password. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.